Leave it there, Chair. But I want to ask now, the Interministerial Committee, because we all, not all, but I heard you making a mistake that the President formed the NPKTT. You called NPKTT. It was not formed by the President. The President formed the Interministerial Committee, which was constituted by ministers from different departments. And then those ministers brought their administrators and people who can process these issues into those meetings where they said to them, guys, and that's the evidence we had here, we have a crisis here. How do we go about it? How do we resolve it? And then suggestions have been thrown around, and then it's left to those guys to go and put up a plan and then come back to the Interministerial Committee and say, we think we need to form a political killing task team. So, on your own, as politicians, you're not going to do it. You had no power to do it. You could only sit there and canvass issues politically and say, you know, we want to deal with this thing, and this is how we think we can deal with it, but go and work on it and come back to us. That's exactly what they did and came back to you. And that's how the Interministerial Committee is constituted. There will be a national commissioner. If there is justice there, there will be NDPP and maybe DG of Justice Department. If there is state security, there will be DG and whoever. They will all come with you so that they listen to what are the concerns of the principals. And then they go and do what is expected of them. And therefore, technically, I put it to you, it was not established by politicians. No president established a national, political killing task team. It was a product of the Interministerial Committee, which instructed the administrators to go and work out a plan, brought it back, ironed it up, and then it was actualized administratively, as it were, but having considered the political interest of the political principals.
So what's your question?
The question is, do you still convinced that you have a power to disband that which you have not established?
Yes, I did say the Interministerial Committee is not part of the 7th Administration. And the Minister of Police was chair of that Interministerial Committee. It means that when there was no Interministerial Committee, the office or the department that is overseeing it is that of police, led by a member of cabinet. Then I'm confronted with all the issues that I've related, all these issues, and I want to do something out of that particular problem. And then I act in the manner that I did, supported by the Constitution and supported by the legislative framework. And I don't see anything wrong in terms of the law as such, because I don't see any other way, or couldn't see any other way. Yes, I may have, people are talking about consulting before or after and so on, but the reality of the matter is that we have a Minister of Police was allowed by legislation, I believe so, and the Constitution, I believe so, and I went on to do this.
Minister, you seem to suggest that interministerial committees get dissolved with elections. It's not, with due respect, interministerial committee is not Minister Mchunu, Minister Akele, Minister, it's Minister of Police, Minister of Defense, meaning that minister will always be there even if those individuals are no longer there. Because if you are arguing it that way, that something established on the, during the 6th term When the seventh term comes in, it automatically gets dissolved. Then you have to make reference, you have to show us where, which terms of reference of interministerial committee said that when the term of political office of certain politicians comes to an end, automatically this comes to an end. Where? Because there's no law that says that. That's why these things are not constituted by individuals. They are constituted by departments which will always be there even when we are no longer there. So part of your handover is Minister of Police. Part of what I'm responsible for is the chairing of interministerial committee that is responsible for political killing stars team, amongst other things. These are the people who constitute that interministerial, because you inherit those activities. And when you guys go back and meet together as a collective that represent these departments, you then say, no, we don't think there is a need for this to go on, and therefore let's close this and give the president a report. A person who established the interministerial committee that produced political killing task team has not dissolved the interministerial committee. We only had the announcement of the interministerial committee, but there is no date for the dissolution of the interministerial committee. And therefore, it means you came in and just undermined what has been there. The political killing task team is not only constituted by police. There are prosecutors who are also dedicated to those things. They are magistrate or whatever dedicated to those responsibilities. And therefore, for one single minister to take a decision to dissolve a team that involves other departments, it can't be constitutional. No constitutional power gives you to dissolve a task team members of prosecutors who are dealing with political killings. You can't. No, because you speak about this thing as if it's only police who are involved. That's why it came from interministerial committee. It's a product of interministerial committee because it's constituted by different people, not only the police. And if that is the case, you have no power to dissolve other people who don't belong to your department. What do you have to say about that, Ms.?
My response is that there was no interministerial committee in the seventh administration. And interministerial committee is constituted by the president and cabinet, not by any other person as you wish, or you as you may wish. It doesn't feature, and I didn't have power to call other ministers on the basis that in the sixth administration there was interministerial committee when it is not there. It wouldn't work. It doesn't work.
Minister, is your answer that once the new administration comes in, interministerial committees are automatically dissolved?
That's how it works, unless the interministerial committees, because they are announced, to say there's an interministerial committee chaired by so-and-so, for what, and so on and so on. These things are announced, they are done deliberately. They don't get, you don't walk into the new administration automatically with what was in the sixth administration. It doesn't work like that.
Do you have a closing report of that interministerial committee? Because if you say it dissolves, it must have a closing report that now we're out, the term has come to an end, there will be a new administration, this is how we've dealt with the issues. Where is the closing report of this interministerial committee, which will have, perhaps, amongst other things, informed your decision to dissolve the PKT team?
No, I know that the last time the interministerial committee met was 2023. I know there was a press briefing in March in 2024. I don't have a report of the interministerial committee, closing report or whatever report. All I have is a handover report from former Minister Cele, who was indicating what activities are taking place under his stewardship.
Minister, are you aware that there is a interministerial task team that was established in 2022 is still in place now on traditional leadership? And how many administrations have changed since then?
It would mean that it has featured in all the next administrations,
But
deliberately so, not taken for granted that it exists.
yeah, but you can't show any minutes of cabinet that says in this administration that interministerial committee is dissolved. There is no such a thing. The president doesn't dissolve the interministerial committee. Cabinet doesn't, because if you say the 2022 interministerial task team is featuring in these different administrations, it means this one we're talking about of political killing task team did not fall into this new administration. But for it not to fall into this new administration, the cabinet would have had to resolve, or the president would have had to make that decision that this interministerial committee has come to an end. You can't give me all of both the president's minutes or note or the cabinet minutes that says this team, interministerial committee, has since been dissolved. It doesn't belong to us.
Yeah, I don't believe that it works like that, that there's ever a day when you dissolve whatever ministerial committee or task team of cabinet that would have been there. It gets pronounced deliberately in terms of reference and all of those things, and you start working.
Minister, there is no rule you are referring me to. There is no terms of reference you are referring me to. There is no presidential executive decision you are referring me to. Nothing that says the interministerial committee on political killing task team has come to an end. There's no, and you don't even say it is automatic. And if you say it's automatic, you have to refer me to some binding documents, either the constitution or whatever guidelines or terms of reference that are there. You came in and ignored the interministerial committee and proceeded like it's not there, without anyone saying to you it's no longer there. Two, interministerial committee was not going to convene itself because it was convened by the Minister of Police. Wherever they are still waiting for you to convene them. You are not saying you took an effort to convene them. And they come together and you say to them, guys, this is the end of it. We now are going the separate ways. No closing report, nothing. We cannot have a government that works like that. You can't say to me, it doesn't work like that. The government announces this initiative, and when the initiative has come to an end, they must respectfully come back to the citizens and say, this brings us to the end on this matter. We have since submitted the closing report to the president or something to that effect. If you say this is how you guys have gone about it, that is disrespectful to our society, which knows that there is an interministerial committee that deals with these matters, and then it gets dissolved. It doesn't even have a courtesy of saying goodbye. When it comes in, it knocks. When it leaves, it doesn't say bye. That's a root interministerial committee. So, Minister, you are the one who ignored the interministerial committee and overlooked it and didn't care. Because if you say Minister Cele came and briefed you about this and that, he would have told you, amongst other things I was doing, was to chair the interministerial committee seized with the political killings in KZN. What's your response to it?
My response is the same as said before, that in the 7th administration, you don't have an interministerial committee on the national political task team. And if you say I ignored, you mean to say it was created and I didn't assume or perform my duties as far as that is concerned after it had been established in the 7th administration. And I'm saying in response, it was not established. So I couldn't ignore something that doesn't exist. And no cabinet. So you are like me. If I can't find a closing report of the interministerial, you can't find it either. I would have been happier if you said, out of my own worry, I went to look for the closing report. I found it, or the minutes. I found them, or whatever you are talking about. Those documents don't exist, and I am not responsible for their non-existence.
So seated here, me and you, there was no date of the dissolution of the Interministerial Committee of the 6th administration. There was no date of its dissolution. And your argument is, in your 7th administration, there was no establishment of an interministerial committee. Inofella moyeng, so it just disappeared, just like that. After coming up with such a powerful instrument to fight crime in South Africa, and then you come in, the whole thing just disappeared, and you say we must accept that the 7th administration never had a thing. This is the same government, this is the same president who has established the whole thing. You'll expect that there will be a continuity, and if there is no longer a need, then you'll come and say, you come together and say, guys, we no longer need this, we're done. Because we've been canvassing this point with you, Minister. You dissolved the interministerial committee single-handedly because you are the convener. I mean, they never said Honorable Senzo Mchunu. They said the interministerial committee will be convened by the Minister of Police. And when you came in, you had a duty to convene the interministerial committee. You didn't. You dissolved it unannounced, and then proceeded to take this kind of actions you took without consultation with anyone.
That's not correct. That's not factual.
But how do you explain?
It's your thoughts.
No, but
and I respect those thoughts.
No, but Minister, how do you explain that a committee that must be chaired by Minister of Police, you come in as a Minister of Police, you don't convene it, and then you say it's automatic that when the new administration comes in, it automatically dissolves. And I'm like, show me the law that says that. You can't point me to any law that says that.
Now, I'm saying you are sharing your thoughts with us, not necessarily talking facts. The fact is, in the 7th administration, there isn't an interministerial committee on national political testing.
So before you dissolve PKTT, such a powerful fighting force against crime, you don't talk to anyone. You don't talk to your colleagues in cabinet. You will say it doesn't work like that.